back to the Kingsway Podcast.
Welcome. Meet more. This is the stupidest intro.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Trevor.
You look a little different today.
If you're just listening, I was just holding a MacBook in front of my face, and which really applies to what we're talking about today.
It does, in the most roundabout way ever. I literally just typed this in as we were starting this into ChatGPT, and if you hadn't had some fun with ChatGPT, then it's like Google from the 90s. We're not really sure what's going on, but we know everybody wants to try it.
How does it know all this stuff? Who taught it?
But we're going to talk about what is real.
Yeah. It's going to like dip its toe into AI.
Yeah.
A bunch, I'm assuming.
Yes. And the world around us, social media, life, entertainment, all that stuff. It's accelerating pretty quickly these days.
It's so crazy how... So, two things about AI off the bat. One, it's not new. You ever seen the autocomplete interviews from Wired? That's AI. That's been around for a long time. When you go to Google and you're like, what's the... And then the like 10 suggestions pop up before you get to type the actual content of what you're trying to say, or like whatever. That's been around. But people have been rebranding and evolving this technology and just now calling it AI, automated intelligence, artificial intelligence. There we go. And been like blowing up and incorporating it into everything and whatever. So much so that like schools and grading systems have to develop technology to catch AI writing students' papers. And voice actors and script writers are going on strike against companies who are threatening to replace them with AI script writers and AI voiceovers.
Oh, yeah.
Even Eminem did a rap battle against himself from 20 years ago.
Yep. They used with AI voicing. And I think really where this comes down to was I talked to Ryan about this a few days ago. I was listening to actually a Mike Rowe podcast, which is the old Dirty Jobs guy, which every now and then I really enjoy some of his stuff. I like the richness of it. One of the things he just talks about is like the satisfaction that he found when he was doing those jobs with the Discovery Channel. Was that these men that were doing hand labor and they felt like they were making a difference in what they were doing had large amounts of satisfaction in their life. And how they, even if it was bricklaying or sewage work or, they were carpenters or whatever, all of these things that we would consider dirty jobs actually made them feel like they were contributing to society. Yeah. And so in this podcast...
They were like proud of them.
Yes, they're proud of them. So they had this kind of a sense of pride in the sense of like what they felt like they were doing was actually making a difference. And that there was tangible things that they were changing in the world and making better, growing, building. And I felt like out of that, he basically just put out there that like he feels like that's going to be the pendulum swing from where we're going right now, is that the commodity that will be desired the most, and he doesn't think in the very distant future, and I think it's already starting to show itself now, is authenticity and realism. Like when you know for sure something is real, that becomes a commodity because of how rare it is. Yeah,
that's the thing that's so hard about digital media. Because so like, imagine you're in the 1810s or something like that. I'm assuming before photography was like
more than you had to sit still for like 30
you
minutes.
You even knew what it was. Before that, if you want to see something but not be there, if you want proof of something, if you want whatever, proof, not even. If you want to see something but not be there, you have to have an artist to draw it and give you that one thing.
And it's their ability to perceive it and then remember it.
Even the printing press, like you couldn't print pictures for a long time. They had to be drawn and then that copied onto a press. So it's like not color pictures of mountains and whatever. But now every MacBook you buy, the basic desktop is one of the most immaculate scenes of nature you've ever seen.
Yes, or pictures of your families or just like memories or something and it absolutely pops up. One of the things I've run into with this, and I mean, we can get through Well, let's just start with this. Like,
Okay.
the expansion of AI has gone beyond already in just a couple years, in the sense of like, and maybe you're aware of this, maybe this will be a little scary, but like even what we used for our green screen videos for our camp for just a few weeks ago, John Flowers found a website that uses AI that you could type in, I want a doctor's laboratory with these types of lights and whatever, and they'll create an active background that we can then throw up on a green screen.
Make me a minivan rendition of the time traveling DeLorean from Back to the Future
with dinosaurs in the background and a volcano and a special time blossom flower, you know, and it does it instantaneous, and then you can change it on the fly. And this is all free. And it's wild. It's starting to become crazy. The ChatGPT that I was talking about, this is something we've outlined before, that you can go on there, type in Bible, like find all the verses on love in the Bible, put them in bullet points, give me explanations of each of them. Now,
summarize them.
Summarize it. Give me a Bible study on it. Like, create a small group questions on it. Like,
you have a friend who's he's inputting his video or audio sermons. Into an AI thing, and it's giving him a transcript of everything he said, study questions for his church, like, and that's crazy.
And it's just wild how, and this is just, like I said, it's been developing for the last decade or so or more, but in the last 2 years, it's accelerated, and they're estimating that this is going to, in the next 10 years, we'll experience 30 years of change in 10 years. So the previous 30 years of the internet, we're going to see that amount of growth. So, you know, go to 1994 to now. In the next 10 years, we'll experience that level of growth in the sense of AI and technology and what we would call artificial environments, sounds, artificial music, or artificial everything. One of the things you were talking to me about is the new synth pad that you have loaded into your keyboard, just even for our worship
church,
set.
When we do, actually used to be this laptop, but when we play piano, we have a piano that's like your keyboard at your computer. It's not putting any letters onto your computer. It's just telling your computer which letters to put.
Yeah.
So you hit the K on your keyboard at home for your computer or whatever. I sound really old. Your keyboard at home.
Your keyboard.
You hit K and the computer shows up with a K because you're controlling the computer doing that. So we're using our piano at church just to talk to a computer, and the computer's making all the sounds. Well, now they've released an AI sound generating thing for this app so that we can say, give me a warm felt piano lo-fi with some like whistling breeze in the background. It'll just pop it up and you can start playing it.
That's wild. And and why this is important to say is, like, as cool as that is, as amazing that is, as beautiful as those pictures can be, as warm as those sounds can be, there's a sense of, this is going to sound like a kind of a little tricky to talk about, but I think it's the part that we're trying to nestle in, is like, where's the human side of some of this stuff? Like, does the relationship, like when you listen to Beethoven, you feel like you're listening to somebody's like brain and heart and hands come alive, right? And like, but now it's like you could type into artificial intelligence, write me a song like Beethoven, and it could write a whole symphony for you in the style of Beethoven that never came from Beethoven.
Yeah, that's the one arguably minor redeemable human thing about AI, is that it's not coming up with anything that's new. It's rearranging old stuff to be in a way you want it. So it doesn't come up with, well, I'm assuming here, like new rappers that are the best of the best. It's just synthesizing how Eminem used to sound. So in that way, it's synthesizing how Beethoven chose to write and chose to arrange and orchestrate stuff, and just copying moves he does and rearranging them.
Yes.
It's more complicated than that and smooths them over, but like,
But how long before we lose the original, like how long before the original blends into the inauthentic? You know what I mean? Like, and that's where I think this starts to get muddy, because, all right, those of you that like to listen to music, let's just stick in that vein or that lane for a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember specifically, like, when I would get a cassette or I would get a CD. And some of you may even go back to vinyl. Like you got the vinyl record, or you still collect those. There's like a certain smell. Like there's a certain, like I'm going to get the record. I remember one of the last CDs I like was at Target on the release day, and this is going to totally date me. And some of you are going to be like, I have no idea who you're talking about. There's going to be a few of you, if you listen to this, you're going to be like, I remember that. Was when POD's CD Satellite came out.
Oh yeah.
And it was huge. Like, and you know, We Are the Nation, Youth of the Nation.
Yeah.
Like there's a Boom, Here Comes the Boom.
Yeah.
It was on like anyway. That CD came out. I remember being at Target, going in, they pulled it out of the box, they set it on the shelf. I was like one of the first to get it, get to my car. I'm like trying to get the stupid thing open because it's always so hard to get open. You get the little corner and you're trying to peel it and you get the thing off. And then I slide it into my CD player. And I just like, in the whole tangibleness of everything about that made you feel like you're connected because you know somebody made that and then bring it. Now it's like a new song comes up and it's like something that some AI generated algorithm is like, hey, you might like this song. And then within 3 clicks, I can listen to every song this artist has ever written, their most popular songs, and it's like within instantaneous, like the connection, the emotion, the feeling of all that is pulled further and further away.
The hardest part of what you're describing, the POD album to now, is that we've removed the waiting and the ritual of it. Ritual is a worship word.
It is a worship word.
We've removed, well, you could also say we've removed the pomp and circumstance around it. The like, McDonald's is special if your family never eats there and you always eat at home. And then they really play it up one time. It's like, for your birthday, you can go anywhere you want. And you're like, I want to go to McDonald's. And they're like, great, we'll be saving up for that. And like, we'll be there in like 6 weeks. You'll be like, I can't believe it. And you'll think about it and dream about it. But if your family goes to McDonald's once a day, you're like, yeah, McDonald's.
All the time.
What else would you even do?
So,
and it's the same food.
Good. Yeah.
It's the same food.
Yep.
But because you had to wait for it, because you had to plan for it, because you knew it was coming and the anticipation built up, it is more powerful to you that one time you ate it.
It's just, to me, this starts to just pick at the issue and why what we started with is like why the authenticity or realness becomes the new like commodity of desire, the thing that you want the most or the thing that becomes the most valuable is, for example, maybe you've experienced this, but like, have you ever gone somewhere that you've only seen in pictures?
Yeah.
And like, you know what I'm saying? So like you
Rocky
can
Mountains.
look up, wherever, the Arch in St. Louis. You can look up some really cool things in Colorado, the Grand Canyon. You know, you can look at pictures. Multnomah Falls is one of the ones that I used to go to. And I got to take you there with John last year. That was so much fun. And pictures just don't do it justice, right? Like you could watch a documentary on it. You could have somebody create AI backgrounds of it. You could have somebody paint pictures of it. You know, you
can replace your Zoom meeting background with it and make it look like you're there.
And it's still not the same. It's not the same.
And this is sort of where I was trying to go with the picture thing, is that like photographs by the early 1900s, it was established that's a thing you can do. And that's the first time you can take proof that something looked a certain way at one point in time. It became a part of our justice system where it's like, I have the picture of him stabbing the lady or whatever. I have the video. But now in the past 20 years, and especially accelerated by AI, those are no longer proof that anything happened because those can be faked, falsified, changed around so much. There was even just recently, we're filming this and going to put it out in August of 2024. In July or June, former President Trump was shot in the ear by an assassin. And this fake story came around that the Secret Service was in on it. And you can tell because while they're huddling around him with his ear bleeding, all the agents you see in the picture are smiling. That picture was faked.
It was faked.
The real picture on the camera from the Associated Press photographer shows them all like stern-faced serious. and somebody went through with AI or Photoshop or something and gave them all little smiles and spun a story. And so now, like, where pictures used to be evidence of real, even though they're a step removed, you weren't there, but they're a snapshot of something real. Now they can't even be trusted to be real.
And I think that's only going to generate because you can even take a picture of Multnomah Falls or take a picture of the Grand Canyon and edit it to look more beautiful, bigger, you know, put the sunset behind. You can do all
Not
kinds.
even just like the color saturation. You can make it seem larger than life, but you can change the way it looks, like where the mountains are.
100%.
You can delete mountains.
And I think that's where this starts to get really, really, I think it gets really poignant, that like the idea of like, I've touched it.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen it with my own eyes. You know, I've been there.
I feel like a trend has come back around of like hiking.
Yeah.
And fishing and nature stuff. Maybe I've just moved to a smaller town and that's what happened. But I feel like what happened is that the trend is coming back around of like being in nature, being unplugged, to get back to realism.
I wanted to bring this to a kind of a thought process around this because for anybody that's done any kind of counseling, where you have to work through really difficult emotional things or trying to grow in an area that there's some trauma or brokenness, there's this thing that can happen, and it's a technique that I was taught and also something that I've had to use on very rare occasions. But what ends up happening is you talk about these things that are in the past.
Is this grounding?
It's called grounding.
Yeah.
And it's this thing that can occur as you talk about things that are abstract, feelings, past events, things that you're feeling and thinking in your body. What ends up happening is you lose yourself.
Yeah.
You actually lose the ability to feel like almost solid, stationary, real. And so they have to walk you through this thing. The counselor or whoever you're with will tell you, touch something and tell me what it is. This is a desk. All right, what do you see? You know, I see a computer. You know, I see a camera. And then you're like, what do you smell? You know, and then you're like, okay, I smell peanut butter pretzels. You know, and I smell I have BO, you know, whatever it is. And
these are the peanut butter pretzels, by the way, right here.
You know, and what ends up happening is 2 or 3 senses in, you ground yourself in what is real.
So that happens during panic attacks, and panic attacks can sometimes happen because of PTSD.
Yep.
And PTSD, war vets have it, trauma survivors have it.
Yep.
Not all, but I just mean like those are the situations. It's post-traumatic stress disorder, and the disorder is that your body and your mind experience the reality of what happened at one time, that traumatic event, more than just that one time. You experience it over and over and over again, maybe not continuously, but regularly.
And you have triggers that can bring it back up, sometimes without you even realizing it.
Yeah, and it can be repressed and come back later in your life. But in those moments, your mind and your heart are feeling that those events in the past are more real right now than where you are and the reality around you, than like the world you're in right now. That's why grounding's so powerful.
And
it's like,
that's
no, this
so
is
cool.
real.
Yep.
That trauma isn't happening.
And the
real.
number one technique inside grounding, which I was going to bring up last, this is the one that they do it in movies. They talk about it in shows. You may have even seen people do it in real life that have struggles with anxiety or panic attacks, is breathing.
Yeah.
They close their eyes and they just focus purely on breathing. And because the breathing is such a fundamental, simple, real thing you're doing all the time that you can take for granted, but it grounds you when you focus purely on something that simple. And there's certain techniques, 657 or whatever.
It's so biomechanical. It's like your body, your mind can understand English if you speak English. If you're listening to us right now, that's English.
Yeah.
But your body doesn't understand English. What your body understands is chemicals and biomechanisms. So like we've talked before on Sundays and in youth group and whatever, when you put your palms out in front of you up and your hands on your knees, like that tells your body, I'm safe. I can trust who I'm with. I'm not in danger. And it's both a posture of weakness and a posture of receiving.
It's also impossible to be angry in that posture.
That was a Harvard study or whatever that I feel like we've quoted.
Underneath the table, you just put your hands up like that if you're ever in an argument with somebody.
So it's biomechanisms where your mind chemically is talking with the rest of your body. If you're like standing but a little crouched, That's like I'm about to run posture.
Yep.
If you're like deep breathing and slowly breathing, that's like, but if you start breathing fast for no reason, like you just think it would be funny and you just start breathing fast, your heart rate will elevate and your mind will get more fight or flight. And you're like, all these things go into each other, but they're real.
So here's kind of the two-pronged thing that I've been thinking about as we are talking about this podcast and what I wanted to discuss. One is that the ability to ground yourself in so many things that are going to be abstract, artificial, and not real, just as like a psychology thing, just as like a humanity thing, is going to be very important. So I do believe like journaling in your like a notebook with a pencil or a pen. I do think like drawing or coloring or doing like real, I do think like an instrument, not attached to electronics, just like an instrument is like a grounding thing. I think yard work, like gardening, and bringing things to life and helping them grow. I do think hobbies, especially outdoor ones, are going to become very popular.
Yeah.
You know,
also like baking bread. During COVID, that got so popular.
Sourdough.
Like, what hobbies can I have inside where I'm safe?
It's just anything that you do that kind of physically grounds you and is just what you're doing right in front of you. I think it starts to become, cooking is one that I really enjoy too. I think that starts to become something that you're watching people get like kind of drawn into this without even realizing why. They're like, man, this just is so comforting.
I feel like the advance of technology 20, 30 years ago, even further, was getting people into thinking like, in 20 years, all of our tasks will be taken care of for us. We won't have to bake. We won't have to clean. We won't have to whatever. And we'll just have all this time for leisure and self-growth. And now we're like, but I kind of miss it.
Yep.
And I don't feel like a human without it. And so maybe you have some of those taken care of for you. Dishwasher, robot vacuum, sweeping your floors, going around.
I know you guys love that thing.
But now it's like I can rest without the panic and do the chores that make me feel like a person. Yeah. But all of them can get done. It's like we don't want to totally escape it because then we can't be grounded to anything.
Well, and I feel the tension of this with, spiritual things too, where everything's at their fingertips. You don't have to memorize verses anymore because you can just Google it. You don't have to you don't have to do research and build and learn studies. You can just read about other people's or read about, things that have already been learned and grown. And there's no real desire to get your hands inside to figure this out at that ground level. But I think what people are starting to feel the tension of is like, I don't want to have to Google it.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to trust someone else's telling me what this is. I'd really like to be able to figure this out myself, which is such a weird thing because there was a point in Catholicism where, the break was that the individual wanted to have a chance to know who Christ was without having to have a priest or someone else tell them. They wanted to be able to look at the Bible and read it for themselves.
That was a big push of, the Reformation was that like the printing press was around. Now it's available and reasonably priced that every Christian could have a Bible in their homes. But from the top, it was like, we'll lose some control if we do that. And there's some good things. We'll lose some we read scripture as a community, whatever. But we'll lose that the Bible's only in Latin, and we'll lose that that whatever. And like people can start to correct us, the institution, once.
Yep.
There was some of that, and so some of that critique is a little unfair, but some of it's pretty fair.
It just seems very funny that like both seem to run into the same place where like if you're not careful these days, you'll just listen to what the internet and everybody else is telling you and you'll never actually investigate it yourself.
Yeah, that's the was it you talking to me or somebody else talking to me about that U.S. pastor, maybe it was Rick Warren, who went to China to teach all these Chinese Christians in the underground church, and their Bibles are like, we have a section, we get arrested, we memorize it, we eat it or destroy it, and we can share from our own minds and hearts. They can't destroy that unless they kill us, and then we're with Jesus, and we win anyway.
We win everywhere.
So we have scripture so ingrained in our hearts. And they were like, what do you guys do for scripture reading? And whether it was Rick Warren or somebody else, they were like, every American has probably 5 to 10 Bibles in their home, and they read none of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the idea of you are completely indoctrinated with everything you think you know or what you have the opportunity to know, but you don't have anything real, anything really understood, really known, really memorized, really understood. And I feel like it's, I know I've quoted this so many times, but I watched it again. It's the Good Will Hunting speech that Robin Williams gives Matt. Like, you know all about love, but you've never been in love. You know all about art, you've never been to the Sistine Chapel. You know all about war, but you've never been to the beaches of Normandy and like seen the holes in the pillboxes. Like and what AI has the potential to do is to give us the illusion of what we think we know without ever having touched it and felt it and experienced it. I built this awesome screen, green screen thing, but I've never hammered nails together and sweat while I built something.
Yeah.
And it's not trying to take away from the beauty of what that can be. I just think the pendulum's going to swing back the other way, where it's like, no, like, I just want to have something that I built without the need of a PC, without the need of my phone, without the need of this. Like, what have I accomplished in my life that's just from me and that's real?
And what's so fascinating is how technology, both AI, but also like developments in, I don't know, like whey protein, whatever.
Science,
and all these
doctors, like all
helping
that stuff.
with self-improvement. In some ways, like healthcare and disease elimination from the world and whatever, we're better than we've ever been. In other ways, like mental health crises are on the rise, and mental health issues and whatever, all these things, and we have the idea that there is the information out there for me to become whatever I want to be. There's information out there for me to like change and actually whatever. But the real thing is always so far away that some of the goals we pursue with AI are fake goals.
Yep.
I want to look like, I almost said Henry Cavill, which also applies. I want to look like Wolverine guy, Hugh Jackman, at 55 with my 12-pack abs and my whatever. Well, yeah, he had to sacrifice a ton, but also his body chemistry, just the body he was born with.
Yep,
and
genetics.
also his diet, and also his whatever.
Yep.
But maybe we're already strong.
Yep.
Maybe we already look better than we think we do.
Yep.
But we're being sold based on AI and tips and tricks and infinite self-improvement that like, oh, I'm not actually.
Yep.
I don't think I'm actually whatever, when you're the most fit or the most whatever, or like as you can be, or in your community, or whatever.
And I think that's the whole thought too, is it gives you these like instant gratifications, instant access to all this stuff,
instant answers
through you, instant answers, instant information, instant entertainment, instant whatever. And from that, you lose out on the rhythms of what it actually takes in reality. It's very similar to like this Harry Potter, or like any movie or book where it talks about like there's shortcuts inside that world where they could cheat with magic or do whatever, but then they still like to do certain things with their hands because it grounds them. You can tell it like reminds them. There's just certain parts of us that I feel like it is like a weird, like, I want to feel this. I want to know what this feels like. I want this to not be hidden from me, the cost. It feels a lot like the Matrix, the movies from the early 2000s, where he gets the red pill, the blue pill, and then he gets unplugged. And this beautiful, amazing life that he had in this city is suddenly revealed to be a sham.
It's gross and dark and damp.
Yep. And and they don't have the food that they all need, and they're not safe, and like all this stuff. And I feel like that's the potential of what this could do. And not in like a radical, like, Terminator take over the world way, just in even like you said, a mental illness, a health cycle, a missing out on what's real.
You watch people interact with AI and phones and all this stuff, and you would hope that every chance is taken with those things to make yourself better, to make your community better, to whatever. But I bet about 90% of the use of all those things is not medical research, is not whatever. It's numbing.
Yep.
It's who's the guy who wrote that book, Amusing Ourselves to Death?
Oh gosh.
That is a title that hurts, but it's more real than ever. Just pull out your phone and look at the screen time and like, how much time have you spent today on YouTube? How dare you? Spotify. I can't believe you. No, I'm just kidding. But like, but not kidding.
No.
Like, when's the last time you took a shower or a drive without audio playing?
Yep.
Not like that's evil. but like, can you even do it? Can you suffer through a silent 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Where you have to think.
And why does it hurt so bad if you're struggling? I know I think it came across my Instagram that there's some research bureau that put out the average American right now touches their phone looks at their phone 352 times a day. And the average teenager, 721.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I'm like 9,512. So it's like, I'm like way above that.
A minute.
But so I guess I want to end this discussion here by basically saying, I think if I was, and I'm not trying to say like conspiracy theory or like go down this like crazy like rabbit hole of like we're all in a Truman Show or something. All I'm trying to say is I think that this is a worldwide experiment, especially in the United States, of what this is going to look like. And finding healthy boundaries is actually going to take effort to not give in to what is always easiest, to not just to take advantage of the things, but also simultaneously learning the benefit. We talk about this all the time, but sin is only something good twisted, right? It's always something that had the chance to be a blessing, and then it's twisted, and it's meant, sex can be that way, money can be that way. You could take anything in the world.
Information, entertainment. Some entertainment is good. It's joyful. It can inspire community. It can help you feel rested.
Too
Days
much
straight of entertainment. I've ordered all my food off an app. I've sat on my couch for 3 days straight. I've binged 2 series on Netflix. That's not good for a person.
No.
That is arguably sinful.
I mean, that's Wall-E, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's Wall-E at the end of Wall-E where he's like, I will walk, like I'm not going to get in this stupid thing anymore. And I hope what I'm encouraging you to think about, or what we're encouraging you to think about, is where is this happening in your personal life where you're grounding yourself spiritually, emotionally, physically? Like, what are you doing to get some sunlight, to feel like you're not just addicted to your screens, addicted to your the immediate gratification of whatever is attached to in your life? And then where are you directly saying, I'm slowing down a little bit so that I can make the choices that I feel like I know that this is real, and that what I'm feeling is not just a distraction or some sort of pulling away or some sort of excitement that's false, but it's actually a real thing. Like, how can we ground ourselves in some of this stuff?
Yeah. The Trevor and I kind of came to the idea for this podcast based on a ChatGPT prompt. I'm kidding. Based on something you had heard, the micro podcast and the satisfaction of working with your hands and this kind of stuff. I came to the same idea, like not the same idea, but a similar idea the day before, listening to the lyrics of the song called Happily Hidden by Pat Barrett, who wrote Build My Life, and he's part of House Fires, who did a bunch of those songs. And John Mark McMillan, who wrote How He Loves, but is not mainly a worship artist. It's just like a thoughtful whatever. And so like the first half is like us and what we're hungry for. And the second verse is like how we fall for the traps. So verse 1 is, we beg for attention, someone to see who we really are, caught in the system, using each other to get what we want. The lust for approval, using the spotlight just like a drug, makes you feel noticed and valued, forgotten and used, the counterfeit to love. But then John Mark comes back in verse 2 and is like talking about how that happens. He says, we're like little commercials trying to sell everyone ourselves, like marketing billboards trying to catch every eye that we can. You can feel the imposter wanting to be the one who's seen. Are we feeding a monster and still wondering why we're not free? And then it turns to a prayer to God. Let him be your hiding place. Let him be your joy. Let him be your audience. Let him be your all. Happily hidden.
That's really cool.
And it's like we've spent a lot of our lives trying to like, even pre-AI, how can I self-improve to whatever? For what end?
Yeah.
To like finally find that approval, finally be good enough that you don't just hurt all the time, that you're not sad sometimes. Finally be good enough that you never get hungry, but you always look good. And
well, and
that all for?
we can attach this to almost any. This is a new temptation, but it's the same old story. if that makes sense. Because
new execution of the same temptation.
Yes, because the thing is, when Jesus is around, his disciples are distracted by what they want is immediate change, immediate removal of pain, immediate, what they see as the best. And Jesus is slowly, deliberately, intentionally meeting people relationally right where they're at across the board, and has a perfect plan that is not going to be probably in the exact way that we would want. And I think when we slow down, we kind of attach ourselves more to the Spirit. We allow God to have a place to access. And, we talked about patience this last week and the idea of walking at the Spirit's pace. That's definitely not going to be Google Chat GPT, whatever all the time. It's most likely going to be a listening ear, a quiet place where God has a space to speak. I mean, if you never have quiet in your life, how will the quiet, soft voice ever find your ears? And I think there's also a spot if you don't have space in your life. Where can God work if there's no space too? Yeah. You have to create that. And that is real. That's real, and that does not change no matter the things that we move forward in other ways, no matter how fast our cars get, no matter how quick we can do dishes, no matter how quick we can make food, no matter how awesome and amazing our entertainment gets and how quick of access we have to it.
It feels like because of AI and internet information and digital communication where you can talk to anybody anywhere, that our life, we haven't simply solved the problems we had before that. We've created a lot of new problems. And actually, sometimes, if left unchecked, we use AI and digital communication, all this kind of stuff, to worship hurry and to worship and serve anxiety.
Yep.
And if I can just be in control of all the things that scare me, then I'll finally be okay. When in reality, it's helping you take care of some of those things and introducing you to 10 more things every time you solve one.
Yep.
And so, like, even in who am I and do I matter and where do I belong, it's answering some of those and helping you with some of those, but then giving you 10 more prompts on why you're not who you wish you were.
Yeah.
And really, like, when you can quiet down and be with God, so many of those fears are distilled with his answers and his speech and his presence with you, and how you belong with him because of Jesus, and how you have purpose in him because of Jesus. Yeah. And you're not hurried anymore. You're not anxious and restless.
And you can be busy, but not in a hurry. And I think that's the true thing. Like, Jesus was awfully busy. He had tons going on. I mean,
he did a lot of stuff.
But he was not hurried. If you're trying to attach to the real, I highly recommend you find a consistent time to ground yourself, whether that is, simply as learning how to breathe and to just allow your mind to have space to even choose some things that you would like to do in your day, like pray or meditate on the sense of like a couple verses, memorize a verse or two, memorize a prayer or two that you have in the back of your mind. Simple grounding things like that. I know for me, like my kids, we do a simple thing. I'm introducing the new one this Wednesday. It's their first day of school. They don't even know what's going to happen, but
unless they listen to this podcast.
Shout out, shout out if they do. But I'm gonna start every morning. We start every morning with a song. And then I have a new chant, and it's a thing that we're going to say, hey, we are Coquillard boys. We love Jesus with everything we have, and we love the people that he loves, which is everyone. And we do little things, hard things, and big things every day. And that just means there are little small things that you get right, that you push into. There are hard things that you don't want to do that you need to do. And sometimes there are big things that we need to be focused on that won't probably be finished today, but are started today. And we continue to focus on them. And I felt like that was just something and that's a grounding thing. When everything else distracts you, you're not sure what to do. Where do we go? We love Jesus. We love others. We do little, big, hard and big things every day. And you have to decide, is this a little thing that I can get done right now? Is this a big thing that I need to push into that I realize it looks bigger than I can handle today, but I know one day it might be defeated? This feels hard. Yep, we do hard things. So we're going to keep pushing into the hard things because that's what we do. And those are trying to be grounding principles. You don't have to have some glowing in the sky moment to pick some of these. You can find a verse, memorize it, pray it every day, and let it ground you. You can find songs and let them be repeated and ground them.
It's okay if it's not in the Bible. If you're looking for a Bible one, Psalm 46 is super good.
Yeah.
It's like chaotic and giant and scary, but it's the psalm that ends with, be still and know that I am God. Or at least that's in the last 3 verses.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the middle of, why do the nations rage and plot in vain? And they plot against me, and I laugh, and the earth melts. And I break the bow and shatter the spear and burn the chariots with fire. Be still. And know that I'm God. You don't need to be worried about any of those scary things I just said. Because I'm God, and you're with me.
And you can always go to one of my favorites, which is Matthew 11, 28 through 30, which is come to
message.
me. Yeah, come to me all who are weary. That's the NIV. But are you tired? Are you sick of religion? Come to me. I will not put anything ill-fitting on you, is what the NIV says. But he says, come to me, and I will not put anything ill-fitting. But in the message, he says, come and learn the unforced rhythm of grace. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. And I love that section of scripture. It's always been one that you go at his pace when you come in and you're attached to him. You put that on, and then also it's just rhythms of grace, and so it's not forced. It's real and it's tangible, and it's walking, it's working, and it's watching him over and over and over again. I hope that if you're struggling right now and feeling like you're anxious, overwhelmed, and you feel like you're constantly in the rat race of life,
or you need something real,
that you don't think that more is the answer. I think sometimes taking a day, getting off your phone, sitting outside, reading a psalm, praying, singing a hymn, or calling a friend, ground yourself in something real, and see if it does not bring back alive something that you did not realize was probably the greatest gift, which is the relationship between God and his people. And all other things are merely entertainment, mist, wind, beautiful gifts, amazing flowers to see, but not sustainable as those relationships would be. So, hey, if you hung on for this long, you have any questions, comments, you want to send us in your thoughts, always love to hear that. You can always subscribe and leave a like. Helps the algorithm. It also helps other people possibly find it.
Helps the AI.
Ship
us off to other people.
Algorithm. And you can always leave a review on any of the podcast things that you're listening to, apps and such.
If you leave a review on this episode, please prompt ChatGPT to write us a review.
Yes.
A positive review. And then just post that.
Post it. AI loves us. Hey, as always, be real, all right? Ground yourself. Have a great and glorious day in the Lord. See you next time.
See ya.